agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 49 of the Daily List Report. We've got a tremendous show for you today. We've got Michelle Newman, who is a new but top agent in the Lake Oswego area of Oregon at Windemere Real Estate. And she comes from a tech background. She's going to talk about the tools and technologies that she's using, how she's adapted and changed them given the current times. Before we get to her, we've got our YouTube page right here. You're watching this right now on YouTube. We've got 48 episodes prior to this one that are available for you to watch here. Tremendous learnings from great industry leaders, top agents, inspirational people, you name it. Please subscribe to this channel. Make sure you don't miss an episode. We've got 5 new episodes every single week right here for you. So, without further ado, we're going to bring on Michelle in just a moment. Michelle's been an agent, again, for only 1 year. 1 year! And she's done 6 transactions in that time, and she is on her way to be an incredible top agent in her area. And it's because she has a tremendous mindset. It's because she's adopted tools, adopted technologies, and she's going to share those with you today so that you can learn how easy, in fact, it is to use a lot of the technology that's out there and how it can transform the way that you do business and to make sure that you can reach your customers in all of the right ways. So with that, we're going to bring Michelle on right now.
Hello, audience. How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Michelle. Thank you so much for doing this and being so open with us about, the things that you're trying, the things that you're doing, trying our things. I have to call this out. You're wearing a List Report shirt, which is super awesome. So thank you for repping List Reports today.
That's right. I'm team List Reports.
That's awesome. I love that. Michelle was a beta tester. We've been talking about our virtual open house, and she was a beta tester, and she's been amazing in giving us feedback. And so we sent her some swag. And so thank you for repping that today, Michelle. I appreciate
Thanks,
that. Yes, that's right. Exactly. Jules is awesome. So, Michelle, what I want to do to get started here, right? We're going to talk about in a few minutes, some of the things that you've been trying and doing and sort of, the role that's emerged for you as a bit of a tech leader, right, within your brokerage and maybe even beyond that. But I want everyone to understand sort of where you came from, right? You've only been doing this for a year, which honestly is shocking when I talk to you that you've only been in this business for about a year. You've already done, I don't know, 5, 6 transactions, buy side, sell side. I mean, this is your first year, right? Most people their first year are just like, looking around the room trying to figure out what to do, but you're not. So I want everyone to get to know you a little bit. So why don't you spend a couple minutes and just talk about how you got into real estate, briefly kind of where you came from, and frankly, why you've been so successful out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'd start off just talking about, why I think I've had success in my first year. Partially is because I do have a consultative sales background. I think without that, I don't know that I would be where I am today. So having a sales background, I mean, I spent a decade, starting in outside sales. And having to get very used to cold calling and rejection really, really shapes a person. So I came into this business knowing that, hey, it's not going to be easy and it's not going to come easy. And you just have to be prepared to not make any money or do any deals your first, really first year or two, most likely like 2 years. You don't really, it takes you a while. So I think coming into it with that mindset that, hey, this is going to be hard work and you might not see any success at all, kind of laid the foundation for me. So, I worked and talked to other brokers who were rookies as well, but that didn't have, the sales background that I have, that have, not have the same successes and have struggled a little bit. So I really credit my experience in consultative sales is kind of getting me to where I'm at. So,
that's interesting. Just real quick, if I could interject, Michelle,
sure.
We had a guest on, his name was Stephen Powell. This was a few weeks ago, and he was talking a lot about mindset, and it was a tremendous conversation. But one of the things that I remember that he said in our conversation with him is that he views, that his role as an agent has shifted from a salesperson early on in his career to a consultant. So can we just dive into that for a second? Like when you say that your consultative background has helped you, why is that? What is it about that? And what has changed? And, what advice do you have maybe for agents as you think about this from a consultative perspective?
That's a great question. And if I think back, I mean, I went to school to be a teacher, right? I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And I quickly realized that that wasn't going to be a fit for my personality. And I started doing, I was a recruiter for a tech firm. So they only recruited tech, it was tech systems. But I was surrounded by all these people who I perceived to be super intelligent because they're software. They build the things that shape our lives, and everything was so high level. And when you're talking about coding and programming, and you're the only one in the room, I'm like, I don't know what these people are talking about. So having that experience and always kind of feeling a little bit inferior and like I didn't measure up because I wasn't as smart as everybody else, really kind of kept me down in a lot of ways. And it was in my own mind, right? And so I remember going to this conference and there were all these thought leaders there. And I was saying, hey, I was just asking questions and saying how I could never do what they could do. And they were just, taken aback. And they were like, well, why do you think that? And they just started asking me all these questions. And that's kind of when my journey and my realization that your mindset really shapes what you can and cannot do in this life. And that's outside of, I mean, that's from doing the job that you do every day to, any hobbies that you have. And it really stuck with me. And so I started asking questions and I started getting more diagnostic in my approach with software. So for example, let's say somebody from XYZ company calls me and they're like, hey, we need training. It's my job to sell them whatever service that they're looking for. But instead of just saying, oh, we have this and we can do this and we can do that, it's like, okay, well, let's diagnose what's going on. Like, why are you reaching out to us for help? And so I use that same approach with real estate, right? It's like, yes, everybody can, if you want to sell your house, if you put the feelers out there, or if you're a buyer, realtors, we're going to it's like, seagulls to a French fry. Like we're all going to be there. Right.
Yes.
So my approach is I kind of take a step back and I'm going to call you or however I interact with you. And I want to understand, I'm like, well, why are you putting your house on the market? Well, what's going on in your life that's driving this change? Like what's driving this need? So when you come, and I think when you approach people from a diagnostic standpoint rather than hey, this is what I can do, and Windemere's great, and we do this, and ListReports does that, and I partner with these people, you don't even know what the problem is yet. Just because they want to sell their house and you're in the business selling houses, you should know a little bit more about your subject before you launch into talking about yourself. So
absolutely. I think the parallel for us, Michelle, is that we talk a lot within the company, but also on the show about the why, right? Like you can't do anything without understanding the why. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Is working with somebody and getting to their why, because sometimes it's very far afield from sort of what they think it is when you really get down to it. Is that your experience?
And that's definitely my experience. And I think too, a big thing for me is like, I'm very big on time, right? I like to be mindful of people's time. Like I don't like to be late. I'm not perfect. I'm late sometimes, but I don't like to be late. And I don't want to go through all of these steps and be working with you if ultimately it's not going to be a good fit. And I think I'm a little intuitive. And so there's simple questions that you can ask to understand this person or whatever the situation is. Okay. Like if you know that ultimately, okay, it sounds like this person really needs XYZ and I can do everything, but I know that I can't do that. Not every deal is for you, and don't waste your time on things that aren't going to turn into, that aren't going to be mutually beneficial. And so, that leads to just mindset, time management, all of these things that kind of go into putting a deal together for someone.
But I think there's another facet of that, Michelle. I'm actually really glad you brought that up, which is confidence, right? What you said is frankly something that I don't hear from a lot of young agents, right? Which is the power of saying no, right? Yeah. So you see somebody who's like, I don't know, I haven't had a deal, I don't know where the next deal is going to come from, and I've got like a small life, like the door is open this much, right? And frankly, it might not be a good customer for you. We talked, and I'll have you react to this. We talked to an agent, a good friend of ours, who started a successful brokerage in San Francisco. And when he started, he wanted to be the #1 condo salesperson in San Francisco. And he found a building. He moved into that building, right? He ended up selling 40% of the units in that one building. He was referring business for buildings across the street. He said no to deals that were literally across the street because he had that level of focus. So Is it confidence? What is it, right? Because it's such a great message for a younger agent, for any agent, frankly, that not every deal, not every customer is worth it. Not every deal is worth pursuing. And it's saying no is such a powerful thing to be able to say yes to the right things.
Exactly. And it's a feeling you get, right? Where it's like, I've had that in my career. I've had that outside of real estate. It's that gut feeling, right? Where you like, there's just something about it where you're like, yeah, I could do this, right? But if there's that big but, you don't need to do it. And it's very simple. You can help somebody else and enable somebody else. Maybe it's not a good fit for you, but you can refer somebody to do it, right? And you're still involved because, they're going to look at you as the source who was able to look at themselves and say, hey, this isn't the right transaction for me. This isn't the right situation for me. I'm going to refer you over that, then jump into something that just doesn't seem like a good fit, because I think all this other kind of, challenges will arise that kind of make it less, I don't want to say worthwhile, but it just kind of takes away from the experience, even if you get the deal done. And I'd rather have those warm, fuzzy feelings of doing kind of the right thing. And sometimes the right thing is just saying no and knowing what's best for yourself.
Absolutely. I think we're all guilty of this, right? I can think of times within this company, we have investors in this business, right? Where we were, trying to raise money from investors, and you just knew, right? You just knew when they weren't going to invest. And yet sometimes you found yourself spending time following up and like, let's get on the phone, let's do this. And the people who inevitably invested were chasing you and they were calling you, and you knew like, this is a good fit. So we're all guilty of doing this, and it ends up resulting in a tremendous waste of time. And that, frankly, is time that is better spent pursuing customers and building a brand that you can be known for, right? That are a good fit for you.
And I don't know if that's confidence or, I think you could still lack a lot of confidence, but if you're just smart enough to know, hey, this isn't going to work out well, this is going to bode well, and start to get more and more experience with doing that, it can help to build your confidence. So even if you start out with like, I'm going to trust me and I'm going to trust myself, I'm going to read the room and I'm going to make a choice. I'm going to make a decision, and you have to go with it, because ultimately things like that, they become time suckers. And you're running around and chasing and following up when it's like clear they're not going to invest, or they're not going to, invest their time with you, or, trust you to manage their transaction. It becomes a time sucker that you could have been using elsewhere in your business.
Right. Yeah. And for a lot of agents, it's a zero-sum game, right? All you have is your time. And if you're spending time pursuing a bad lead or a deal that you shouldn't take or is never going to materialize, that is time that you are not spending pursuing other deals, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Michelle, talk about the technology angle a little bit here, right? So we're sort of, still in the midst of these times, right, with coronavirus, and it's regional in nature to a certain degree, right? And we're opening back up. Most states, pretty much every state is opened up to some degree. But talk about some of your experience during this time, some of the things that you've tried, that you've done, that have worked, and sort of how you see, the next year of your career as an agent.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing for me coming into real estate, part of the reason I wanted to do that was because of my tech background, just in terms of working in the software world. On the professional services sides, I've interacted with so many software teams that are building so many incredible products, implementing features and things that all of us use every day. And so I wanted to, put some of that into my business. And one of the things that I was really good at was digital marketing, having to sell your services digitally. So I got to bring that experience. But then also using tools. Like I knew the tools that I were going to use to run my business were going to be a huge thing. So even before I got into real estate, I was evaluating tools. I was evaluating ListRapport. I was evaluating Cloud CMA, different CRMs, different tools for marketing listings, so I spent a fair amount of time doing that as I was getting licensed. And I also spent a fair amount of time doing that throughout the first half of my career. So the first 6 months. Yes. So yeah, like I say career, like it's this long thing, but it's been a year. So, but I'm really glad that I did that upfront work, because now I'm very good at determining what works well and what I'm going to use. There's so much stuff out there that you just got to make a choice at a certain point, right? And I think I spent the first 6 months kind of like immersed in like all these different tools and all these offerings, and like, oh my gosh, like ListReports, they have these shareables and creates content, and keeping current matters does the same thing, and there's YouTube channels, and there's so much, and you have to kind of narrow that down. So I've really taken this approach where my website is like my central point of contact, like my
Yeah.
hub, and all these other tools and avenues and Facebook and YouTube and social media, those are all different kind of like feeders. I don't know how to
Yeah.
that like feed into my central point. And so I definitely wouldn't obviously wish this pandemic or anything of the sort on anyone, but because of the climate, my skill set has really come into play in terms of being able to be virtual and show that I know how to use technology and not miss a beat. So
Yeah.
if that makes sense, that
Yeah.
it's really helped me stay on top of, um, you know, real estate and without being like, oh, I don't know how to do a virtual open. I don't know how
Yeah.
to hold a virtual open house. I
Yeah.
had a lot of that stuff kind of lined up because of my know-how.
No, it makes a lot of sense, Michelle. And look, I'm grateful for you doing this. One of the reasons that we do this is because not everybody out there has the wherewithal, the skill, whatever you call it, to go and kind of scour the market and find
Yeah.
the great products. And so one of the great things about this industry is that agents learn from other agents, and I think that you've seen this even within your own brokerage, right? I mean, I feel like you've become sort of this like the go-to person for technology. Is so that's
Yeah.
interesting, if, even in your own capacity, right? So what are some of the tools? Let's just talk specifics. What are some of the
Sure.
tools that you're using, and in particular, maybe over the last few months here? What's
Yeah.
become more important to you? So let's talk a little bit about some of your toolkit.
Yeah, of course. So, one of the things I started using early last year that was a big hit amongst brokers, everybody in my office was, asking me about it, but I really like this tool called Spacio. It's good for open houses. Okay. So before the pandemic, I would be able to take my iPad. I bought like a stand or whatever. You set it there, and it's basically lead capture, right? So it says, welcome to the open house. You can put in questions. I think it allows you to customize the questions about, what brought you and how you found out about it, and then
Mm-hmm.
your contact information. So that's one tool that I like to use, and it's still relevant after the pandemic because it has all this lead capture, and now it's easier than ever to, go to a specific property. Like if I'm listing a property that's very similar to one that I had or in the same area, I can go directly to those people and say, hey, I know, back in November, you visited my open house for this. And because of the pandemic, we were doing things virtually now. And here's how I'm doing that. And so then it allows me to feed into, I use Matterport. Matterport is a tool that I think a
Yes.
lot of agents have. I mean, for me, in my experience, I think we all know about it, but not a lot of people are using it. And even before the pandemic, I didn't know why you wouldn't be using Matterport if you couldn't.
Right.
So like I love Matterport. I bought a 3D camera. I think you can do stuff with Matterport now with your iPhone, actually.
You
But
can. We actually just tested it, and we're going to do an episode on this.
it's
Maybe
so
we'll have you
dope.
back on. But yeah,
Yeah, it's so dope. I do the Matterport. I love that because you go through and you shoot your property, and then you just upload it, and then the Matterport people do their magic behind the scenes, and then you have your tour.
yes. And Michelle,
So
real quick, what
Matterport,
was the camera that you bought? Because I want to just pull that up because it's
yeah,
it's not a
I'll show you
five
actually.
thousand dollar camera. It's like maybe a few $100.
Yeah, it was. This is a Ricoh Theta V1 or something. So this is what it
Yeah.
looks like. It's
Okay.
tiny. I love it. So I just put it on. I bought a tripod, and you just put it on the tripod. But this is what it looks like. I don't know how it works, but it takes the most amazing 360 amazing immersive pictures.
And so you
So
use that for your Matterport.
I use this for my Matterport. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I mean, I think it's. I don't have an iPhone, but I think it's kind of cool. I'd be very interested to see. But the quality, honestly, between this camera, the Ricoh Theta, can you see
Yeah.
that?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Okay. So between this one and the big, huge Matterport that the professionals use, you really can't tell the difference between one of my
Interesting.
course and somebody who's the big one. So,
And Michelle, I'm
and then
pretty excited actually to share the results of the iPhone test because we just did an iPhone test. It's with an
great.
iPhone 11 Pro, so obviously good quality camera. But we just did a test, and I think you might see that it's not that big of a difference between that and your piece of equipment versus the high end equipment. So it's going to make it a lot more accessible for everybody, which is awesome.
That's awesome. And I think as an agent, I mean, I have a Droid, I have a Google phone. So, and I had already bought this back last fall, but
Yeah.
I think it's such a huge benefit to your clients. And I always try to explain to people that when you upload your tour to Matterport, and I don't want to get too high level here, but I just know that they post it, it's on their servers and they post it to their websites and to their different partners. So from a digital marketing standpoint, all of that, like I get hits and tours from things when I upload it without even promoting it first. So I just
Interesting.
want agents to know that, on the back end, whatever it is that they upload to VRBO, Realtor.com. I think you can do like a Google Street View. It can create a floor plan for you. So it has all these features. And I like it because I can show people, how to measure a room when you're actually within the tour, right? You can do the dollhouse view and you can zoom in and say, hey, client, if you guys are potential buyers and you're interested in this house, this is how you can measure this room. And it's pretty accurate within like a quarter to half an inch in my
Wow.
experience. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
And
Uh,
real quick, just on the Matterport, just stick on that for one moment. Like
yeah.
when you talk to, let's say, a buyer, like what difference does it make, right? What difference does having a Matterport versus not having a Matterport or whatever equivalent, right? In your opinion, what's the difference?
So the difference for me, and what I try to educate my buyers and show them, especially during this pandemic, is that this gives you, I say it's basically like Google Street View for the inside of a home, right?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I like using Matterport. To me, it almost feels like you're in the home. Like after you've done a couple and then you go and you're like, this is just like the tour, it's so I try to educate them and being like, see as much of the property as you can in person and really get a feel for it. Before we have to actually make an appointment and decide if we want to go see it. So that's helped me with my buyers in terms of weeding out properties that may or may not be a good fit. Because pictures can be beautiful, right? But
Yeah.
then when you're able to get in there and you can like go around corners and see different angles, or see this loft that you didn't want, or get a close up and see the oven is, or the countertops are scratched or something, it's like, oh, I wouldn't want to put my money into that. So let's not waste our time going to that property. So it's
Yeah.
a time saver for us. And I think it's essential right now during the pandemic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Any other tools come to mind that you've been using lately?
Gosh. So Spacio, Matterport, content is king. So anything I can use to capture content, I have a drone, so I'm doing stuff like that and using YouTube. I use ListReports, of course. I use Box Brownie, which they do virtual staging. They can do photo alterations and stuff. So I think Box Brownie is important to have in your pocket as well. There's so many tools other than, all of this.
Such a funny name, Box Brownie. I love that.
Box
We
Brownie.
actually, I don't even think we've told you, we just announced a partnership with a company called Pad Styler that does virtual staging. And
Oh,
I'm,
are they the ones
Michelle.
to do the open houses, the virtual opens
Yeah, they're
for
gonna.
for
That's
the
right.
beta?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's pretty. I think you've seen some of them. It's pretty incredible what you can do with virtual staging now. I've never
I
heard of
love
Box
virtual
Brownie, so we're gonna
staging.
have to look into that.
Yeah, yeah. I would say also Cloud CMA is good for agents. I use Breakthrough Broker a lot. It helps me with a lot of the marketing and being able to connect with my sphere and putting out the right kind of content and marketing
Yeah.
materials for agents is very good as well. Focus First is one that I use. I use it to create graphical representations of market data, which are really helpful for listing appointments. So when I have that one client that insists that their house is worth 600 when everybody else's is 4, I can show
Right.
them and say, well, yeah, this house sold for 600, but it took it 180 days. So I like Focus First a lot. Um, what other? I use Canva for creating
Yep.
content as well.
It's a
Canva's
great way to do that. I
yeah,
agree. Great tool for that.
yeah. And I also use Close for CRM management. I use HomeSnap, which is do you know what HomeSnap
I
is?
do. Yes.
Okay, so I'm huge on HomeSnap. And have you heard of HomeBot?
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
HomeBot I think is a great tool too to use. So
So
There's so
that's
many.
pretty good stack, right? Like you have a pretty pretty mature stack there of all of these
Yeah,
services, and you know how to use them. And it just takes time and experimentation, right? I mean, some of the services you mentioned cost money. Some, like ListReports, don't cost any money at all. They're free. But there's an opportunity, I think, to experiment and try these things. On
right.
the video side, you mentioned drone. I'm interested. Maybe we'll talk again in the future, Michelle. But I've been
Sure.
playing around with the same thing in some content creation. This Friday is going to be our first show where I do a tech tool review. So I'm going to review a gimbal, and it's a tool that I think every agent should have. You can get them for $100, and it makes your video quality 10
So
times
much better.
better, right?
So much.
So I'll be interested to see that. But, I think our message has been just get out there and try these things, or, listen to someone like Michelle who has vetted lots of solutions and like, this is my stack, right? This
Yeah.
is what I build my business off of. And Michelle, you're obviously constantly reevaluating, and you'll switch things in and out as it makes sense. But, I
Totally.
think that's great.
You just got to
What?
try things. I know there's people out
Yes.
there that are afraid or like they don't know. And I mean, I have, an interest in it, but like a lot of these things, I don't know either. Like I didn't know where to start with Matterport, but I just started researching how they do it, and it led me to that camera. And I was able to buy it and start playing around with it and figure it out. So I've had it since last November, and now, as of now, I can say I'm pretty good at it. But I would say with any of these technologies or tools or apps or whatever it is that you're interested in trying in your business, you just got to try it. And I
Yeah.
always free trial it. If I can't get a free trial and there's not one, sometimes I'll call the support line
Yep.
and ask them. That's
That's
something that I
awesome.
would tell agents to
It's a
do.
great tip.
Call and say, hey, can I demo this? Or if you're part of something, sign up for the emails, because maybe there's a beta team and they need beta testers. That's a great way to get in really, a deep dive of any sort of platform or program.
Absolutely. You
So
might even get a free T-shirt if you're a
you
beta
might even get
tester,
a
right,
free
Michelle?
t-shirt.
I mean, you
I
never
got a
know.
free t-shirt, a water bottle, a towel. Like I'm ready to go.
Oh, you got the towel too. The towels are awesome. That's very nice. Just to that point, on Monday I had AJ, my co-founder and CEO, on, and we were talking about this. And one of the things that we talked about, Michelle, is that in practice, most technology, certainly in this industry, is not that difficult when you try it. In other words, it's a lot easier than you think it is, right? When you actually try it. So I used a drone for the first time last week, and I literally flew it up and I flew it down, and I turned on the video, and it looked amazing, right? Like so it wasn't that. I mean, obviously I'm tech forward, I know technology, but I literally flew it up and I flew it down, and I was like, that's a great result. Like when I do this gimbal thing on Friday, it's like, you walk in, you walk out, and it looks amazing. So the point is that it's not as hard as you think it is when you try it. And more importantly, I think for us, when you do that, it is such an empowering feeling. Like I looked at it afterwards and I was like, I did that, right? Like I thought that was so hard to do, and I've seen that stuff all over the internet, and I just thought like I had to hire somebody or whatever. And it's like many of these things, Michelle, are not as hard as you think they are. They really,
Right.
really aren't. Anyways, and it's a very empowering feeling.
It's very empowering. And honestly, I think that's where a lot of my confidence has come from lately, is that I'm doing these things and I'm, that you've seen them in other people's listings and other people's work. And you're like, they must have some sort of editing team and, pros
Yeah.
doing all of this stuff. And you're like, oh, I did that. I can do
Yeah.
this. And when you get it under your belt, it's another tool in your kit to just to be able to say, hey, I can do this, and know with confidence that you're offering your clients the best of the market of what you have and what and being able to, even if you use another third party or service provider to do it, you're like, yeah, I know, I can tell by the quality of their work because I've done it myself.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just a quick, technology history lesson for everyone out there, right? Technology drives towards making things easy and accessible. It has this inertia and sort of inevitability towards that. And sometimes we just have to look a little bit in the past. I'll give you one example, which is Instagram. The reason that Instagram took off and was so popular is that it made everyone with, at the time, not great cameras on their phones look like a good photographer, right?
Right.
So they leveled the playing field, filters were their thing, and anybody with a phone all of a sudden could take really beautiful pictures. So it made it accessible, and I think even this drone that I used, Michelle, I took a bunch of shots and it actually made an automatic video for me. It wasn't perfect, but I had music and everything, and I was like, whoa, all I did was just do this and it made everything for me. So technology has a way of sort of an inevitability towards making things easier and easier and easier over time, and more powerful. So I think it's
100%.
important that you try this stuff.
My daughter, she's 7, and she uses the drone, and it's
Yes.
so easy. It's like a video game. If you're into video games, okay, I'm telling you, like that skill set will help you with the drone. So if
Yes.
my 7-year-old can do it, you can do it. You just got to try.
That's
Just got to get
awesome.
out there and try.
I
It's
think we're
easier than
gonna
you
do
think
some
it is.
drone shows here as well. Might as well. Like, it's really great content. It's really beautiful and amazing. And to your point, it's not that difficult to do. So awesome. Hey Michelle, as we wrap up for today, any sort of parting words? Maybe we can wrap with sort of, year one for you was pretty tremendous. Like, what does year two look like for you? How are you thinking about the next year of your business?
Yeah, year one, I was very fortunate, and I would say, to anybody, my messaging would be, you have to embrace technology at this point. I just completed the ePro certification for NAR, which as a realtor, it's a great designation, but it really helps you embrace, technology and how you can use it in your business. And I would say for me, my first year was really kind of structured around learning the technology and the tools along with how to be a realtor and how to do real estate and marrying them all together. And, I could still be, evaluating different tools, but it's a hard stop for me. And I'm using the tools that I like and that I know work. And I'm taking that into my second year of real estate. And I'm just going to go hard with them. And I'm going to use them to my advantage. I'm going to promote them when necessary. I'm going to share them with other agents. I think a lot of agents, in my experience, people keep things close to the vest. And I just think we get more when we're sharing ideas, we're
Yes.
sharing our experiences, we're sharing our successes and our losses, like our hits and our misses. And I'm taking all of that into my next year and just really going hard to be my most authentic self, and to be honest and genuine and just forthright with everybody. And I think I'll have more of the same experiences that I did my first year.
That's fantastic. That's tremendous. Michelle, thank you so much for joining today. Thank you for sharing, frankly, everything that you've learned. I love that attitude and that spirit of sharing because I agree. I think it makes us all better. So thank you so much for your time today, and I hope we can talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome
All right.
anytime.
Take care, you guys.
All right, so we're going to wrap the show for today. That was amazing. I'm going to post some links in the comments to some of the services and the tools that Michelle mentioned, and then also that NAR certification. That seems really interesting. I actually don't know about that, so we're going to look into that, and we'll post a link to that as well. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to do our very first product review, so if you guys like it, we'll do more of that, but you have to tell us that you like it. And until then, be safe, be healthy, be happy, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.